Advisory Commission. Call this meeting to order and ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have almost a full roster here today. Rob Albright emailed me and let me know he would not be able to attend tonight, so he is excused for tonight. Moving forward, is there any comments, additions, or deletions to the agenda as presented? Great. Moving on, did everyone have a chance to look at the meeting minutes, which should actually be October, not March? That's what I get for doing a copy and paste. But any comments?
Motion
Great.
to accept as written.
Can I get a second? Great. All in favor? Aye.
We'll vote on them when they're not amended.
Okay. I'll get this one of these days.
One of these days.
I even looked at our archive just to check what happened last time, but for some reason it was cut off, so I didn't get to actually see what your comment was because I couldn't remember it.
Okay. When you do minutes and you don't change them, they are what they are.
Mm-hmm. Great. Moving forward, we have open public comment. Seeing nobody is in here today, we will close open public comment, and if for some reason we do have somebody that comes in later, anyone watching at home that would like to come in and comment, please let us know. You feel free to come in. We will allow open public comment later on. Old business. First item to talk about would be the Horse Mill Path and maintenance project updates. Wally, do you have anything for us, sir?
Yes, they're all done.
Great.
Let's make this work. Am I on?
Sounds like. I think so.
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. The Horse Mill Path is essentially complete. It is what it is now. We did a lot of work repairing, patching, rolling through. Nice cookie duster there, buddy. I thought it was a nice cookie duster.
It's no shade no longer.
Oh, I see.
Prostate awareness.
Okay. Let's see, I've got some notes. I should probably follow the notes before I get completely off track. Just a few things. Woodcutting was so successful for the Greenways Open Space, they're going to offer it several times. And that's really made several parts of the areas where our bike paths run through look a lot better. And there's a lot more. I think there was 36 people here cutting this time. We're going to offer it multiple times. Just so you know, we're going to do some more work. Repairs at the gas station are complete. Township staff got it all done before bad weather, and I think it looks good. Path between the schools has been rehabbed. This was a safety issue. It was late in the season. We had to move fast. Dale authorized the contractors to go in and make the repairs that are necessary. If anybody's walked that path will know exactly what I'm talking about. And the fountain's been put away for the winter. End of my report.
I have a question about the school path.
Go ahead, sir.
Looking at the general ledger activity report that Ann provided, it looks like that was $34,407. And is there a breakdown of the bid that was processed for that? What was it associated with?
This was done using unit prices in place in the township. It was not a bid-out project. It was a maintenance project.
And could you explain a little bit more in detail about the unit pricing for those of us that are not that familiar with it?
Yeah,
how does it go
the
around?
township has many obligations to keep its pathways, its roads, its structures safe. So if something like a piece of sidewalk in front of the township building here were to rise up due to cold and have to be replaced, or a section of roadway had to be torn out and replaced, and because of the maintenance efforts, we needed to have it done rather quickly. the township negotiates with asphalt contractors, general contractors, and they say, this is so much for a square yard of concrete placed. This is so much for a square yard of asphalt placed. This is so much a yard for an excavation, and so we have a tool in place to have a quick response to a need. We don't have often time for certain things to get done in a sequence of bidding and advertising for bids. Sometimes things can't wait for that. So,
But generally, that's for, small item repairs, correct? I mean, a slab of sidewalk is maybe $500 or.
well, that's more than $500 sometimes, but
Yeah.
but that's the
But you gotta
purpose
say,
of
it's like,
unit pricing.
it's generally for those small items.
That's not necessarily for small items.
Mhm.
It's for items that are time restrained also. That
Mhm.
bike path was time restrained. We've been working on figuring that one out for a year and a half. It's been marked and painted twice.
Mhm.
If anyone has ridden that bike path or walked it, and I have, knows that in the dark, you could break a leg there,
And which one are you referring
the
to?
one between the schools.
Yeah, I've ridden it about a dozen times this year. At night, I think any of our paths are actually a challenge, if that's the correct. I personally didn't see the need, and the bigger issue I have with it is the fact is it's not township property. It's part of another government's jurisdiction, the school districts.
It is used by residents of Groseal. It was installed by this township using some funds that we were fortunate to get from a
Mhm.
community block grant. And we have to maintain all of our facilities.
But my
Doesn't
point
matter
is,
where it's at. If it's a
It-
bike path, we take care of it.
it does actually matter where it is, because in looking through the regulations, you're not permitted to just do this on some area that's out of the jurisdiction. Is there an intergovernmental agreement that was drafted between the district and us?
No, there wasn't.
Is there a hold harmless for any kind of
No,
happening?
there wasn't. It was installed initially with an agreement that I don't believe the school was a party to. We did it as a recreation
When was
and
that done?
DPS project, and I think that was done like 10 years ago.
Well, I've been off the board for 4+ years now. It wasn't done while I was on the board. I'd like to find out the history of it, because if we did put it in, and we somehow have a history of that, then I can see something a little bit different. As far as I remember, where I went to high school there, that was the cross-country track that was put into place by the school district, not by us. But I will stand corrected if you can show us that it was something that we put together as a township for them. It certainly didn't happen when I was on the board.
I don't recall the exact year it was done, Roger, but it was done, I believe, when I was on the board. Some years ago.
Can we get a takeaway of getting that information back?
I will ask to have a research as to when it was installed.
And I just am curious as to the legal, if someone gets hurt on that piece of property, who winds up paying and being on the hook for that injury? Especially after we've improved it.
I would suggest that being improved, the chances of injury are lessened. And who pays wasn't my concern as much as who gets hurt.
But I think we still need to be asking the question about who pays in the light of not having that many funds. The project at, with $34,000 was actually a 20% increase within the amount of money that we were, projecting to be used on the projects for, refurbishing the Meridian path, refurbishing the Grow path, and this was kind of outside the scope of that. So, I mean, I get the safety aspect. I won't argue with you on that. It's just that when it was initially brought to our commission before by you, as well as, one other person, we talked about it. There was some things that needed follow-up, and I'll say that there's plenty of blame to go around about not following up. But just because there wasn't any follow-up doesn't mean that we should be going ahead and doing a project without that additional follow-up. When we're doing a project that's not on township property, I don't know, was the schools actually involved with this? Did they know that we're going to be coming in and actually
I'm sure they
repairing the
did.
project?
I'm sure they did.
And I mean, I guess, as just a courtesy, it would be nice to let us know what's going on, since we are supposed to be this one-stop shop for all information about bicycle and pedestrian travel within the township. So, we kind of look silly when we're, just, looking for, just a summary of everything that's been happening with the maintenance path budget. Just, I just wanted that, just to look at historical records and be able to project out what's the lifespan of this fund. And we find something that, as of last month, I was told that, we had like $230,000. And now, we have, significantly less. And there was plenty of opportunity just to send, an email and say, FYI, this was a opportunity for us to improve this path. It was significantly cheaper for us to go this route, do it through the bid. It was a safety concern. I know generally, we would like to bring these things before the commission. This was a time-sensitive issue. I apologize, but here, just let you know about it. And I guess, that's my thing, is like moving forward, I want to make sure that we have more coordination and more communication between our township and this commission, as well as residents.
As I told you yesterday on the phone, I found out that this thing was in progress.
Mm-hmm.
Under the auspices of Dale Reed and his directive to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I don't have a problem in the world with fixing that path. And I think that we're acting, if you think you're looking silly by that, you're going to look a lot more silly if somebody gets injured out there. And we've waited long enough. Many people have brought to our attention.
Many people
Jack,
who?
Jack Delphi, for example.
One, and you. Two. We've heard plenty of times about East River. We've been here about Church. We've been here about Park Lane. We've heard about West River. Talk about Groseal Parkway. These are, major, projects that many residents have come to us before. But only 2 people told us about this path. We have heard nothing from the schools. And, if it was that big of an issue, which I'm not saying it's not, but, if it's that near and dear to your heart and Mr. Delphi's, as well as anyone else, I would encourage you on future matters, just if we're dropping the ball, if we're not talking about something, because granted, we all get busy, we forget to put things back on the agenda, call us out on it and say, I'd like to add this to the agenda and talk about this. We forgot, we need some follow-up from last month. I just want to connect the dots. I'm not blaming anyone, and I'm certainly not, I understand where you're coming from, where you say, you just found out about this. This is not supposed to be an attack on you, not an attack on anybody. But I just want to, moving forward, I'd like to be included in on the process, and when not, at least, have some communication to this commission so we know what's going on.
Since this happened since the last bike path meeting, and since I was notified of it about 10 days ago, you have some justification. However, I'll still stand by my point that it needed to be done and it got done.
Mm-hmm.
We need to address issues one heck of a lot faster than we have been. And I'll give you an example. We need to have somebody, or several somebodies, walk the existing paths to decide what we're going to do with them next year. Because if you start walking them in June and July, we're going to be here next October and November praying we can buy asphalt before the place is closed down. So again, I think part of that was a frustration on the part of the township waiting for some indication. So he went and did it himself. And he's got the right to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I'm not
I
saying
mean,
he doesn't.
Can I say something here, though? I mean, I hear what you're saying, Wally, and we'll have to agree to disagree the role the township has on property that's not ours. We'll have to take that up at another time. But it took a year for the punch list on Horse Mill to get resolved, and this had to happen this fast. And there were safety issues with that punch list, absolutely. There was cracking, there was pooling, and there was actually future maintenance issues that if they had cracked again, we would not be in a position of spending more money to fix it.
The very worst problem on the Horse Mill path was a pimple on the elephant's butt compared to the safety issues on this path. Let's not compare them.
Well, I've ridden the path a lot, and I didn't see the safety issues with it.
Well, you didn't notice those holes in the ground deep enough to step into? You didn't
No
notice
worse than there.
You didn't notice the horses, you didn't notice the traffic cones, you didn't notice the always being replaced caution tape? Okay. I stand corrected. Maybe I'm too safety
Well, the
conscious.
school district, and, you know, it's their property to maintain, and I didn't notice it myself. In fact, the day of the ride to school, I ended up doing it 3 or 4 times between the high school and the middle school on different routes. And I'm looking, and I've seen issues like where raised pavement and stuff on our current bike path has been there. We've reported it. A split of longitudinal cracking I noticed over by West River that was said to be resolved. It's not. I mean, we bring this stuff up, but I think that for $34,000 on some other pieces of property, we need to get some more answers for it. And if I task you to come back and get some information for me, I'll do that. I can go out to Dale, I can come to a meeting, I can come to the board meeting and ask a public comment. I mean, what do we have to do to, because I know that, I read Brian Loftus's note that came out last year when there was controversy about whether we should even spend this money at all on things. And he had said very clearly it's for our bike path system in the note that he'd said. And this is clearly not our bike path system we spent $35,000 on. And I want to know what I know that there's a procedures manual about purchases that I know have guidelines on dollar amounts. This is a big dollar amount. I understand for safety and having to get stuff done, don't get me wrong, but it's not ours, number one. And number two, the amount was very big.
So noted.
I guess the last thing I'll add is, you know, I don't want to be nitpicky. I recognize that, again, there is, you know, good intentions by everybody. And I think that it's great that Mr. Ream, you know, took the opportunity to say, hey, we're already doing one project. You know, perhaps there was some cost savings. He heard about an issue that Mr. Posiak, you know, mentioned to him. He got it done. That's great. We want to have a responsive government, and we do want to address, you know, issues. Regardless of, you know, this territorial thing, in the end, we do have a safer path. It's going to make a more attractive environment for our community. So, you know, in the end, I think, you know, it's not that big of a deal specifically, but I do have, you know, some questions about repercussions. The one thing is, the reason this is a big issue is not so much that, you know, about the project. You know, we could quibble about some things, but the point is that it was $34,000, and we have a finite budget. So we got to make sure that we're, you know, stretching our dollar where we can. Secondly, there, you know, the question is, does this set a precedent for other pathways on the island? For example, we have paths, you know, what could be called a path at Park Lane Elementary. It loops from the parking lot around, you know, the field and comes back through. Is that considered a bike path? Are we going to be spending money on that now? The path at Centennial Farm between the parking lot and the pavilion goes around to the playscape. Could that be considered part of it? And, you know, you mentioned sidewalks already. Mr. Bailey in the past had said that he considers the sidewalks on Macomb Street to be bike paths because it was put in with bike paths funds. But we know that, you know, generally our bike path maintenance fund is supposed to be for bike paths, and a sidewalk is not a bike path. And then we go into a discussion about trailheads because, you know, there have been people talking about building trailheads. That could be part of the bike path system. Do you see where I'm going with, like, there's a precedent, and we could be on the slippery slope of paying for more and more things, which are all great amenities, all things that we should be having within this within the township. But if we're going to take this under our bike path maintenance fund, we got to figure out how to pay for it moving forward because we have that finite budget. And there are people that, you know, criticize the efforts of using the bike path fund for sidewalks and other things. I'm not one of them, but there's people that criticized our Safe Routes to School effort because it was specifically for schools and it's talking about sidewalks and it used the bike path fund. So, you know, we have to try and convince people that when we're moving out for a new millage to take care of our maintenance projects, to, you know, potentially put in new construction projects, it could be harder to pass that millage. And the last thing I just want to mention, again, when I'm talking about bringing it back to the commission, yes, Mr. Ream has every right to do projects like that. He has the authority to do it. And in many cases, it definitely makes sense to go ahead, without, consent from BPAC. But, and again, BPAC doesn't have the ability to spend 1 cent. All we have the ability to do is provide recommendations to the township board and to the township departments. We're not claiming to have that authority to spend it. But we do like to reserve our right to provide opinions and give you our honest, advisory role to have that and be able to either say we recommend this or we don't recommend this. Take our opinion at what you will, you can decide, but at least we have the chance to talk about it. So, moving forward, if, projects like this continue, that it's not brought before our commission, if we're not included in this, it could lead to the disillusionment of members of this commission. And I really don't want that because we have a very, talented group here. And as you can see from, other commissions that have vacancies for months and years, it's hard to attract talent for our projects and programs. And we're doing a great job of doing that. We're, yeah, we've dropped the ball in certain cases, but we've also been working our butts off when it comes to other projects. We've been doing encouragement programs. We've been talking about our assessment process. We've passed complete streets ordinances. So it's not like we're sitting on our hands and just, twiddling our thumbs and saying, we don't care about this project. We did, drop the ball. We did, forget about this. But again, tap me on the shoulder, talk me, tell me about it. But when I send an email and ask for, topics for discussion for the agenda, put it on there. I'll gladly talk about it. Or, if we miss that opportunity, again, at the meetings here, we always ask for, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Bring it up. And as you mentioned about the, walking the path and figuring out what we're going to do next year, let's do it. Sorry for taking so long. Does anyone else have any other comments, questions,
Yes,
concerns?
maintenance funds and capital project funds are two separate issues.
Mm-hmm.
We're working out of a maintenance fund, and I'd like to keep our discussion involving maintenance funds, because if we don't maintain what we have, you're going to whistle Dixie getting a millage renewal for more maintenance funds.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, we don't have a capital fund, and we don't have a millage for capital projects. If you want to put in a new bike path, a new trailhead, or a new whatever, you're going to have to go before the voters.
Exactly.
So my point is, give this community good bike paths, and you will have no problem getting maintenance funding for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of it.
I completely agree with you, sir. And, I think,
think we've got your
99.9% of
opinion.
the time, we're together on this. And sometimes it's just a little bit of a different viewpoint. But again, please don't take any of this as an attack.
I don't take it as an attack. I take it as a indication that we need to communicate better.
Great.
And that's all.
Mm-hmm.
No apologies for what was done on that path. I support it 110%. But maybe you could have known about it earlier. Again, I didn't know about it until
Mm-hmm.
a short time ago. Nevertheless, it's been out there. I just was going through minutes. It was mentioned in our March minutes. And at that time, it was an estimate of $20,000 grabbed right out of the sky. So it wasn't like we didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, if there's issues that people want to parse about where the path is and who owns it, Grozio Township residents use it, number one, and really, I'll stand on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, thank you for letting me rant. I apologize for the duration, but let's move on to better and great things. Brick selling campaign. Do we have any movement on that? I know that, I'm sorry, go right ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that,
I think you're muted.
where I was muted before. Well, I was going to say there have been no new sales since our last meeting, except Jane just handed me an envelope at this meeting, so that will be, I guess, all we have.
Great. And again,
I have a question about that. We agreed at the commission to deadline Valentine's Day, right? Do you want me to make a video to let them know it's still on sale, call Township Hall?
If you got the time, great.
I'll make the time. Okay, I'll do that, and I'll have you review it before I give it to Ted.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on. Last meeting, we talked a little bit about ordinances, specifically about a sidewalk ordinance and about putting in the sidewalks, and it related to Park Lane, close to the high school. And we did mention about doing some follow-up with Mr. Tony Gray, our township ordinance officer. And I'd like to find out, did anyone make contact with that? If not, is that something that we should still be doing?
We've had indirect contact.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Gray has been assigned specifically to ordinances regarding blight. And the December 8th Township Board meeting will discuss his efforts as to enforcing the blight ordinances. They have been chiefly around leaving of boats and recreational vehicles in front drives,
Mm-hmm.
and getting a lot of that cleaned up. So, have we talked to him about sidewalks? No.
Okay.
But again, he's one man. He's been put on a mission by the Township Board, and we agreed to let him go for 6 months on that commission, and I think that his work has been good. And you want to talk about sidewalks, we'll talk about it after he gets done with that.
Okay, so this is something that we should bring
Keep it
up in the
there,
future?
sure. Keep it up there. Bring it up in the future if you're interested in it.
Do you know of a good time that we should, you said something about 6 months, should this be?
That'll
when
be
we-
after the first of the year that he'll be done with his ordinance enforcement on boats.
Okay,
Boats and RVs.
gotcha. So January or February, let's make.
That's
I'm
contact
curious
with
to see
them.
how that actually goes, given the history of that here on Grosse Hill.
Yeah, but
Till I sold my boat, I was one of the non-compliant people.
I know that's a contentious issue, and there's many opinions on it.
Yeah.
It's interesting to talk about, but let's try to keep the subject on matter. Halloween parade. Jane, you got the floor. Tell us about our success.
We were blessed with a beautiful day. We had about 14 bikers. I had Rob and Aaron to help me with voting, and Brian came in with E.T. on his bike with his 3 daughters. It was wonderful. We had a lot of fun. I was able to get donation from Pets on the List. They wanted to donate, which was great, and the hardware store, and I got appropriate bike prizes. It was a lot of fun. I'm thinking about maybe doing it again next year. So I was happy.
That's
And
great.
the bike rack turned out really nice. And I also made a video, and I gave it to Ted, the video guy, and he posted it on cable TV. So hopefully you had a chance to see it.
I'm gonna experiment to see if we can show it right now for anyone that wasn't able to see it.
Oh.
I don't know if we're gonna get
Okay.
sound, but
Cool, thank you.
Great job, Jane. And by the way, great costume. That
Yeah.
So you were dressed up?
I took her to Slow in Detroit.
I thought it was my mother-in-law at first.
Sorry. I took her to Slow in downtown
She'd
Detroit the
kill me
following
if she
Monday. And people were complimenting my costume in Detroit. A few people came by and took a picture of me. I'm like, okay. That was kind of fun in downtown Detroit.
you were decked out to the T with the bike, the hat, everything.
Just the
I
cape
Think
and
she
the
likes
hat.
the
Yeah,
they-
The cape made you look like a superhero when you're riding by.
Oh, cool.
That's true. Think of the Incredibles when they talk about the capes and the jet engines and.
Yeah.
I was wondering. I heard some folks talk about possibly doing a bike event as far as the Independence Day parade. 4th of July. Would you consider potentially expanding out and doing more bicycle parades?
I can look into it, sure. I'm going to check my schedule and make sure nothing planned, but I can do the same thing again and decorate with red, white, and blue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Know when exactly the parade will be?
I don't, but we can check into that. But I think these
Okay.
are
As soon as
great
I find out.
opportunities to promote our community, and hopefully if it grows, we might be able to get people from off island to come over here and be part of it, explore Groseal, and maybe spend a little bit more money in our downtown area or potentially buy a house.
You get a lot more bang for your buck at Island Fest's parade than you would at 4th of July's.
Island Fest.
Sure.
Well, Chicago twice a year has the Ride the Drive, where they close part of Lakeshore Drive for bicycles. If only our river roads were, well, we got the one part of West River on the south side that's in really nice shape.
Mm-hmm.
If maybe we, this might give you guys a little bit of a headache, the police department, but have a sanctioned ride along the water for people and be publicized outside and to get just to be able to ride along, because it's may not be as special to us as we're residents here, but I think the people when they come over here, they're like, wow, didn't know this was so beautiful. And if we had the roads in a little better shape in some parts, I think it might even be a better plan, because it's one thing we'd have to put repair stands in for repairing flat tires.
True.
That's coming, Roger.
Yeah, but I think you might be able to craft a loop though that would be using the south end of West River. It's still pretty. They've cleaned all that up now in front of the wildlife refuge. To at least have that be part of it, and it's wide there, so you probably have some leeway to do something there.
Well, actually, I was kind of thinking, I don't know if that's appropriate for the topic, but I am thinking about organizing a mini tour from Groseal to Wyandotte and back.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be a good idea? I have
Sure.
plans already. What do you think?
Sure.
I think it's a great opportunity. If you can pull it off, awesome.
Yeah, I looked
There'd
at
be some
Slow.
pushback about the bridges.
You go.
Mhm.
You know.
I guess
Some of those
Actually,
bicycles don't ride on bridges very well.
Yeah, and I think that the bridge, the toll bridge, is a little bit more bicycle friendly than our free bridge.
yeah.
So planning out the route, looking at the context, how many people are going to be riding, what day, is there any specific events going on? Those are all devil in the
Yeah.
detail, and we will definitely have to work that out.
Sure, but again, there's always possibilities here, and you know that the folks, the Sims folks have had a triathlon. There's nothing wrong with making it a pure bike event and running the same route.
Mhm.
Sunday mornings are absolutely
Perfect,
perfect for them.
yes.
Perfect environment.
What a nice
Actually-
day to come visit Groseal and bring your bike,
Mm-hmm.
you know? That's,
Blessing of the bikes that day,
Yeah.
and we could do all kinds of things.
Great.
Yeah, I was thinking about, I have a tentative route plan. I bike down Toll Bridge much better than Free Bridge.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, ideally, can I tell you briefly the route would be? Can I tell you about that?
I guess
Okay, I'll
keep it brief, but
I'm
great.
thinking, real brief, like meet at the Centennial Farm at a designated time. I'm thinking making a free event, hopefully include restaurants, whatever. Check out the trails and then go on Meridian, go to Freeburg, go to Bishop Park in Wyandotte,
Mhm.
maybe have donation from the restaurant to donate water or apples or snacks, take an hour break, and then bike back, go to horse mill, go down to Grow, go to the drinking fountain, go back to Centennial Farm.
Great.
Like a whole day event. Family friendly, take your time, and maybe I can have some volunteers from Slowball to come and help out. And Alan and I can work together in terms of patrol.
I would suggest that we reach out to, other bike clubs that are on the island, Opportunity Grow Zeal,
Okay.
but also, representatives from the other perspective downriver communities. So reaching out to the Business Association in Wyandotte or the DDA, recreation departments. If there's other communities, let's try and make this inclusive, and that way we can brand it as something bigger than just Grow Zeal, and provide a more united approach to our channel communities in greater downriver.
Okay. We're looking into it.
Awesome.
I get the dirty work started.
Before I go on to new business, is there any other old business that I don't have on the agenda here that we should be talking about today? Okay. Next item I have is a non-motorized plan approach. Last month, we spoke about starting up our non-motorized plan for various reasons. And I'm going to try and get the slideshow going over here.
Five will stop and start for you.
We talked about having a actual non-motorized plan subcommittee, and we did have people interested, but unfortunately our schedules didn't mesh. So we have not met yet, but I just wanted to make sure that we didn't leave off another month. So I came up with some concepts that I wanted to share with everyone here today. Again, this is just a starting point, and as we move forward, we can look at either enhancing this, tweaking it, whatnot. But it's just an idea of who should we be reaching out to, and what this document could potentially look like. So the first thing is I want to make sure that this is not just a BPAC plan. We need to have that greater communication. It should be a plan for the entire township. So I think one of the first things we need to do after we've got so a preliminary framework of what we're trying to sell is talk to the township board, talk to trustees individually, but also come before the actual board and let them know what we're looking to do and make sure that we have their consent, because I don't want to be a rogue agency. I want this to be have the full backing of the township board, and then from there. I think that we need to go to all of our township commissions and departments and do a similar sell, just to let them know that we want to be inclusive, we want stakeholders involved, and we don't have a monopoly on all the greatest ideas out there. After that, I was thinking that we need to identify champions from across the community. Some of these, hopefully they could either step forward. We might have suggestions. From the various departments or aspects of the townships or the schools, but also reaching out to the business community, residents in specific corridors that we know are high priority, or just residents in general that are champions for bicycle and pedestrian travel, as well as reaching out to our philanthropic partners. As I mentioned before, having specific meetings, township board. This is just an example list. I think that maybe we can add to that or talk about our specific approaches moving forward. I think as far as our message, again, we need to talk about the benefits of bicycle and pedestrian travel. Don't need to spend too much time on that, but we need to at least make mention of it for those folks that might not be as intimate with this as we are. And also make mention that this is about coordinated planning to do the cost savings, to create an enhanced user experience, as well as be more competitive for grants and funding sources. As far as the format, I was thinking that we should not stick to any specific format. It's just paper only or just on the web, but actually try and do a multimedia approach. So as I mentioned before about having champions, I think it would be great to do little video spots. They could be as short as 15, 20 seconds, maybe as long as a minute or two, but talk about from different perspectives, why people value bicycle and pedestrian travel, why it makes sense for, the residents, or makes sense for DPS, or things like that. But having that video message, I think it would be a value added. I think that the work that was done for the Walk the Path event was outstanding, and I think we can provide sort of like a similar format that could actually showcase parts of our region, and then together we might be able to use this later on as a marketing piece. Aside from the videos, I think that we could put some of these videos and stuff on GITV or YouTube, things of that nature, Facebook, but also at different events we could have the kiosks and be showing some of this information. But not include it to just video or the web. We could have some posters, brochures, information within newspapers. Sky's the limit. But when it comes to the actual document, I was thinking that it would be mainly web-based with some supplementary hard copy materials for pieces that we know that people are going to be very interested in. So that way we're making sure we're not we're addressing the digital divide. There's some people that they're just not going to get online, but for a lot of others, there's so much more bang for our buck, and we can be much more comprehensive with the plan and change it moving forward. But I was thinking that one major component would be the map of our existing and planned facilities. Again, it talks about all the known issues that we've heard from residents over the years. Include the activity centers that we know people want to get to, as well as the priority corridors. And I'm saying priority corridors, the corridors that we think we should be moving forward with for different types of infrastructure. Additionally, I was thinking, that's a lot of information on a map. So we might be able to do, if this is a web format, we could have individual web pages for some of these corridors that we know people are talking about. So this is an example of one of these planned websites. It's called Ferndale Moves. The web address is ferndalemoves.com. I encourage any of you to take a look at this in your free time, but there's different tabs. So some of this relates directly to the plan document. Other parts are about outreach and implementation and moving forward with projects. This is the example plan map. Again, I showed this to you guys as a draft in the past, but it would show all of the existing facilities, activity centers, as well as a little bit of information about the different corridors that we'd be looking at. But we'd have additionally the web page for some of these high priority corridors. So this is just an example because we've heard about East River so many times. We've done some dirty work on that, that we know that there's many reasons to have some sort of facility on East River. So requests from residents. It's part of our showcase trail route going basically from Wisconsin all the way to basically almost the Monroe border, then coming back up into Detroit and ending at Belle Isle. It's a great route because we have the views of the river. We're showing off our community. We have access to the middle school. There are safe routes to school. There's connections to our business district, our downtown, as well as to our historic district and our newly waterfront park. And it also connects directly to our existing Forest Mill path. And of course, we do have a lot of challenges. We want to address those, and then potentially include some of these solutions. Obviously, we could make this more graphic, just for the sake of brevity. I included it in this table tonight. Off the top of my head, I know that these are some of the likely priority corridors, just because we've heard about them so much already. But I don't want anyone to think that this is an exhaustive list or that it won't change over time. I also thought that it would be great to basically have a petition list that could be online that people could sign, and we might just do have a support for general aspects of making Groseal more walkable or bikeable, or we might have an approach for specific corridors. So East River or Groseal Parkway or West River, any of these priority corridors that we keep hearing about, we can actually have an evidence base that there are people within the corridor as well as within the township that support this, and that way we could use that as well as gauging, can we move forward with a millage on a specific project. Again, I was thinking that the master list would be online, but in order to make sure that everyone had access to it, we could have paper copies that could be at certain places, and then we'd have somebody specifically inputting this into the master list online. As far as the format of the document, there's a couple different approaches we could take. One I thought of, because there's been so much work done with our PAC program, and they divide up things pretty neatly, there might be some benefit in just doing the chapters like that. Alan, if you think that's beneficial, I'd like to get your input on that. But the other aspect that's fairly common is to talk about the 5 E's. So when you're looking at our engineering, looking at actually putting projects out that people see as far as a bike path, a wide paved shoulder, bike lanes, etc. Education, so our safe routes to school programs, drivers training, things like that could fall under education. Enforcement, talking about making sure that people are obeying all the rules. That means motorists, that means bicyclists, as well as the pedestrians. And then our encouragement activities. So things like the Halloween parade, or these the Tour Gros Îles or Tour Downriver, whatever we're talking about just now, that could fall under that encouragement category. And finally, if we have measures for evaluation. The other way I thought about doing this was using an organizational focus. So, rather than talking about things at the higher level and grouping it, basically say, which of our departments or which parts, which stakeholders within Gros Îles would be moving forward with these different things. So the first one was be talking mostly about capital, but it would include, BPAC, DPS, open space. So talk about the capital improvements program, traffic calming measures, trailheads, et cetera. Potentially with our planning commission, our downtown development authority, various township property, talking about the land use and link between land use and walkability and bikeability. So this is where we get into bicycle parking and pocket parks and those type of links. With the recreation and our nonprofits, we have aspects of the safe routes to school. We have talking about our walking school buses, our bike trains, the different events that we talked about, as well as working different booths. Additionally, we might be looking at, is there a demand for bike riding classes, learning how to be proper road riding bicyclists, because we can't put a path everywhere within Gros Îles. Additionally, are there things that the various group rides, the bike clubs can be doing to help out? We do have driver's education within the high school, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe we don't. But is there an opportunity for us to talk about sharing the road within that? Again, there might be targeted public outreach that we can be looking at. So you're talking about your changeable message signs, your yard signs and billboards, as well as the multimedia. Additionally, there's things that BPAC, our Public Safety Commission, as well as the residents in general could be doing. So you could be identifying some of the more arcane rules within our ordinance, for example, and that says that you have to, wherever there's a path available, you must ride on the path. Well, that's not a those are rules put in place a long time ago. Generally, they're frowned upon. It's not something you do if you're a walkable or a bikeable community, as well as any road in Southeast Michigan that doesn't specifically restrict bicycle travel. You're open to be riding on that, and the paths are only going to, they're only going to fill a certain market demographic. If we have a bike club riding, riding through and they're going 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, they belong on the road. They don't belong on our path where we have people walking and people in strollers and with dogs. Jane had mentioned about the stop signs and looking at the idea of the Idaho stop. That could be where we could talk a little bit more about this and see if this is something we want to move forward with. Additionally, I thought it'd be nice to look at potential warning programs, because when I talk about it, basically a lot of these get into the enforcement category, and there's nothing that's going to, frankly, get people upset than getting a ticket. And there's much more that we can do, because the point of the ticket to begin with, correct me if I'm wrong, is to try and correct behavior. So if we can correct behavior with warnings and providing different educational materials, we don't have to go down that road. So instead of, if a public safety officer sees somebody riding against traffic, not wearing their helmet, they might pull them over, but then they have some literature that they can specifically give them on this is the way you're supposed to be riding, as well as these are the reasons why. We could also be looking at that for potential code enforcement, rather than relying on our code officers. If we know that somebody is continuously parking their car across the street, across the sidewalk, blocking the sidewalk, children and everybody's going to have to walk out into the street to actually get around. It might be just nice to have a friendly little postcard that says, hey, you're blocking the sidewalk. These are the reasons why this is bad. Would you mind actually not doing that in the future? There's an idea about neighborhood pace cars. So in order to try and have traffic calming and get people to actually obey the speed limit, we can get people to pledge to drive the speed limit. And you might have a little bumper sticker that says, I'm a neighborhood pace car. And it's just the idea that you create this platooning, you're trying to create a safer environment through voluntary measures. Additionally, we might look at aspects for, basically having ambassadors, either on our paths, or walking on our paths, or bike riders on our roads, but just people that are out there providing out friendly advice or literature on things that make a more pleasurable or safe experience. And the last thing I thought about is a link more directly with open space, where we have issues with people talking about we have these trails that they're going back into the woods, or we have something that you're worried about crime, you're worried about public safety. Well, maybe you could actually have some sort of a neighborhood watch program, but it's centered more on some of these facilities, so that way you're adding an additional level of safety, and I'll link directly to the public safety department. So that's all I had as far as my ideas. And if we have something we want to talk about tonight, that's great. If not, I can postpone any more discussions till our committee meets again.
It looked good. You got a lot of thought in it.
Thank you.
A lot of thought, a lot of work, a lot of good work. I was encouraged when I heard you right at the end mention the Greenways Open Space Committee, because I've been beating that drum since I've been here. Hard paths and soft paths are paths, and they both have differences, but they certainly have similarities, and they can both be very, very much positively reflecting on each other. Greenways Open Space is kind of taking a little low-tech approach to trying to get people used to the pathways and the planning and the uses for open space, and we're getting some headway. But one of the things that I've encouraged them to do, and I will encourage you to do, is take a good hard look at using the best communication system we have on the island. It's called Channels. That booklet, I've talked to the folks that put the book together, and if you get your first thoughts on it. For example, you had the map of the island with its stars for activity sites. Greenways Open Space is doing the same thing, and they're doing theirs with a density projection to show people how important greenways are to Grosse Ile. This is what Grosse Ile looks like from 10,000 feet in the air now, and this is what it would look like if you had another 5,000 houses on it. So I think that speaking to Cliff and his group, we did that once last year. I'd like to see that happen more than once this year. But both of you need to sit down with Lauren from Lauren Smith from Township Board and work out something. She's already guaranteed a page to them. Be nice to have 2 pages facing each other. What do you think?
That'd be great. I know
It's a good low-tech start. And many people, you're right, many people aren't going to go online.
And we have utilized Channels in the past for
You did?
using for public comment, but yeah, I think we could more target our message specifically, what we're looking for, or encouraging people to do.
Can I have a
think it would
question?
help if we had, somebody acted as a liaison to even channels, because it's a fluid thing. It's ongoing and you have to keep up with it. You know, they often update everything or change your program, so it's important for us to keep in contact with them on a regular basis instead of once a year, or, you know, we can post special events and.
Sure. That's
I
true.
would be willing to do that
Yeah.
if it would help.
That
I
puts,
think that
that
would be
puts
a-
three really good community committees or commissions together. That's recreation, bike path, and greenways open space. And boy, that's a powerhouse, you know, so, you know, we may as well take advantage of it.
And
No.
definitely want to
And
have more encouragement.
Alan's volunteering,
I will.
I'll second.
One of the things I noticed is that at the trailhead, if you're on a bike on the hard paths and you want to stop and walk one of the natural paths, we need to post bike racks at the heads of these trails so people can actually park their bike and get off. And sometimes you need to get off your bike, especially on a long ride. And it would be a good idea to put one at the trailhead so they can park their bike and walk the trail and come back to their bike.
So much
a
of that
small
is
thing.
talked about in greenways open space
Okay.
already. It's,
And,
it's, there's a synergy that we need to take advantage
Yeah,
of.
we'll talk about that maybe off air and see if we can start addressing that, and maybe we can even ask people to donate bike racks, you know, just like they would donate a bench, and put it at strategic points, not
Sure.
just at trailheads, but there's other places, the storefronts, of course, along the business district. A lot of them have been doing it. With Macomb Street Market, a lot of people ride their bike. I do. I get off there and I go into the store to get something to support them. And there was a need for a bike rack there. So you can see where strategically it would make a big difference.
Especially if you put a little sign on there where it came from.
Exactly.
And the really nice thing about bike racks is that they're so customizable. I mean, the days of just, you know, your schoolyard bike rack, you know, where you just have the slots, put your wheel in it, and it's over. I mean, they can design anything that you really want. I know that in Southwest Detroit, there's a little joint that serves sliders. It's actually, you know, focused more on like a Southwest, you know, cowboy theme. And the bike racks over there just look like the, you know, the little,
Green Dot Stables.
yeah, thank you, Green Dot Stables.
Like a
But-
hitching post?
Yeah, hitching post for.
An artist name, I actually met the guy who did them.
There's a big push by the Detroit Greenways Coalition, as well as others, you know, identify all of the companies that are Michigan-based that are producing bike racks, and quite a few of them are artists.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, if we're asking for folks to, you know, donate a bike rack, you know, they can have, you know, a vision, and do they want it to be a tree? Do they want it to be, you know, a person actually, you know, riding a bike? Do they want it to be, I don't know, a dollar sign? You know, whatever you want, the sky's the limit.
We would welcome that. Why don't you announce that we would welcome contact by the public to,
If they're interested in donating, it would be a good starting point if they'll contact us, and we'll follow through on it.
Be an idea to come up with a idea for one specific style of smaller rack. Put it on a website and say, this rack costs $1.29. If you are interested in placing one and having your name put on it, please contact Brian Pollock, you know? Things like that sell. And
Commercially
as far
available ones are kind of expensive, though. That's what I've noticed. Like if you
Yes.
buy one, like a Park or like a name brand one,
Mm-hmm.
if you can
Yeah.
get one made locally, maybe AirTech Welding, maybe he'd be willing to put something together, build it locally here.
The Voc program at the high school also.
Yeah.
If there's a metalworking or welding Voc program, maybe they could take a project on and design and build one for us.
Where's Mr. Coco when we need him?
Yeah.
Those are all good ideas. Wayne State is full of bike racks now and riding paths, and there is a lot of a lot of bicycle traffic on campus now, much more than when I started 10 years ago. So it's another good place to ride, by the way. The center campus is the prettiest place you'd ever want to see in Detroit. And by bike, it's really, really nice.
When they Second Street went two-way about 3 or 4 months ago, I was riding down there. That's really changed the whole layout down there in that area, except getting it connected to downtown and Southwest. And that's sort of, you see a ton of people even in this last weekend. There was a bunch of us that were there. I wasn't riding a bicycle, I was riding a motorized vehicle, but there was still a ton of bicyclists out, even the weather was bad.
Moving forward, since we, a lot of times we seem to digress and talk a little bit about what's happening in Detroit, because there's so many great things happening there. They're a good role model to look at. Would anybody be interested in having a guest speaker come in and talk about in a little more detail some of the things that the city of Detroit is doing?
I would be interested.
We have a transportation director who's been heavily involved at Wayne State with bikes and bike paths and racks and things like that. His name is John Frederick. I'll talk to him, see if he might be interested in giving you a presentation. What's happening on bicycles down there? He's involved with things like sit cars, and with the whole Woodward. Anybody been on Woodward lately? Looks like
Every
a
day.
war zone. But boy, is it going to be something when it's done. It's really coming together. It's going to be interesting to see how the parade's going to work. But I understand there's 2 neck down areas on it. But again, there's going to be bike capability in that area too. So a lot going on.
Yeah. The downtown partnership is actually looking at a strategy for just the downtown area, because as Wally is mentioning, Midtown is growing by leaps and bounds with their cycling infrastructure. There's so much on the riverfront in Southwest Detroit, all over. And then we've got this gaping hole in downtown where there's a lot of people starting to live, and people are trying to get through. So they're actually looking at their own non-motorized plan as well, and they're looking at doing a lot more protected bike lanes. So actually having, some vertical protection, bollards or curbs and things to actually separate bicycles from the motor vehicle travel.
Okay. There's a couple of things I've been trying to jump in. You guys are talking to me.
Sorry.
That's what we do.
The channel, when is the deadline so we can get the page done? You know when the deadline for the next channel?
I'll research that for you.
Okay, so that way we can get that going.
It's going to be
And
somewhere in
two-
late February. They'll be putting out a March.
Okay, maybe we can talk more about it in December
Yeah.
to get that going.
And they usually do give me
Halloween.
a,
I mean, like Halloween and 4th of July parade and all of that. And secondly, we were talking about bike rack. Remember how you did about the BPAC logo? Maybe we can have another grocery contest to come up with the best design that represents grocery. Let the community get involved and design it.
it's a possibility.
Get that going.
Great. Just one last thing about the plan. I'd like to get your guys' opinion on, is there specific aspects of this plan that we should be prioritizing, make sure that we get up in the front? Personally, I think it'd be nice to have the map, as well as you're saying,
agree.
for multiple purposes.
I agree.
And additionally, make sure that we're citing potential locations for bike racks, as well as, I know Mr. Albright had said about, potential trailhead locations and things like that.
Sounds great. I will say that the PAC they tend to generalize when they form their regiment on requirements, and our community is so unique. We've got to take the time and attention to make sure that it's specific for our community, and we don't try to generalize too much because we really don't fit in that demographic. We're really so unique that we've got to really focus on making sure we're fitting in our own demographic and not a generalized demographic, because we won't be really servicing ourselves the way we should be, simply because we're missing the point. And I don't want to say we're urban or we're rural, but we are definitely unique. We don't have the through traffic issues, we have water issues, so we do have to really concentrate on that.
I like to say we're a resort.
Yeah.
Does anyone know if there is a plan to run the bike path systems through the area along the McLeod sites, north of the Elizabeth Park, through downtown Old Trenton and points north.
I can tell you that there's no specific plans for a path per se, but the entire Jefferson corridor is considered, you know, a priority corridor. It's both from the downriver linked greenways, they identify as the north-south connector. The Governor's Showcase Trail, as I mentioned, is going to be using the Jefferson corridor, as well as potentially US Bike Route 25 coming from Toledo up to the city of Detroit and beyond will be likely be utilizing this corridor. So I can tell you that there will be some sort of facility out there. It might be a combination of sidewalks and bike lanes, or, you know, marked shared lanes. It might be a path. I don't know the specific treatment yet, but it's a, you know, there's going to be something in the corridor, and with the governor's charge of trying to put, you know, this route together within the next 2 to 3 years, hopefully we'll be seeing something sooner than later.
The reason I ask that is that it seems to me a nice route for a bike ride would be somewhere that comes off of the toll bridge and rides as a big loop through Elizabeth Park and then goes back to the toll bridge and perhaps ends right here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would be a nice, probably a 10-mile ride,
Yeah.
easily a 10-mile ride. But it's kind of rugged through that McLeod Steel, Firestone Steel area, and
Mm-hmm.
putting a bike through there, you're gonna have to have off-road tires, I'm afraid, you know.
Yeah, the pavement isn't that great. But what's nice is if it's,
I biked Tollbridge, no, I biked Freeburg, Jefferson. No problem. I was surprised. It was Sunday morning. It was beautiful. And the roads were not that bad. Traffic was not there.
I know around Riverview, you know, where the toll bridge closer to, you know, Wyandotte, where you got the railroad tracks, they're still on the roads. Some of those are utilized, other ones aren't.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
talking.
the road's a mess over there.
Yes, it
If you
is.
get over that, what's nice is you've got all those lanes. So basically, you've got a 10-foot wide bike lane. So my wife and I, you know, travel side by side, riding down the road, and, you know, cars, you know, have plenty of room in the other 2 lanes. But yeah, I would love to see more coordination
Mhm.
between our community and the rest of the channel communities, you know, to provide that greater connectivity.
Very true.
Anything else about the non-motorized plan? All right.
Can you send us your PowerPoint so I can look at it, maybe add or delete or whatever?
Sure, no
Okay.
problem. The last thing I had under new business is, I talked with Mr. Eric Ranka recently, and he told me that there is, you know, still interest, and I guess it's more of a priority about doing the sewer work, or water, I forget which it is, water or sewer, on East River Road, and that, you know, they're still weighing their options on whether they're going to be, you know, boring the pipes underneath the roadway, or if it makes more sense to rip open the entire road and redo that, the pipes that way. And Mr. Ranko, who's been, you know, a champion for, you know, bicycle and pedestrian travel, he, you know, is leaning towards the idea that the road's in really bad shape to begin with. Probably makes more sense because it could be cheaper to actually rip open the road, and then when you're redoing it, is there some sort of facility that could be accommodating on East River Road? So when I saw him on, you know, election day, he's like, "Hey, what's the next path on the island?" I told him, "Well, we got to get this plan in order first of all." And I said, "You know, I don't want to commit to anything." And that's when he told me about this. So he said, "Come on, can you hurry the plan along?" So I just want to say that, you know, this is on the radar, and, you know, it might be nice, you know, as we're doing this, you know, to look at, you know, what are some of the possibilities. And let's not go reinvent the wheel, but, you know, leave off with what we learned through, you know, Rains Engineering and stuff in the past.
The East River plan has always been the crown jewel,
Mhm.
and it's been talked about as long as I've lived here. We did get some work done on it by putting a widened shoulder on East River, and that was a big help. A lot of people didn't agree with it, but I'd still have people walking in a 6-foot wide shoulder rather than trying to bicycle in a 1-foot wide path along an 8-foot wide lane.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a particular preference as to whether we have a widened shoulder or a separated bike path from road.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the road that will put us on the map with bike paths.
Mhm.
That's the road that people will come to ride.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, let's face it, there's some steep opposition from people that live on that road
Yeah.
that don't want a lot of traffic there. So, you know, we got some salesmanship to do here.
Exactly.
Salesmanship begins when the customer says no. Okay?
All right.
You mentioned about each river.
Yeah, my kids are gonna be coming selling Girl Scout cookies to your door
Oh,
very soon.
I'm as good as no with anything. You know, I got 2 granddaughters that sell them too. How many do you want?
Okay,
I don't
question
know.
about East River. He spoke to you about the East River. Do you know what part of East River?
He told me basically from Grays up to Horse Mill. So it's a very large section.
That's long.
And the Governor's Showcase Trail Route is, planned to basically be utilizing, East River from Macomb Street, up to the Horse Mill Path. So that's, a very large portion right there. And as I mentioned before, the state is very committed to seeing this thing implemented, and they have this time frame, and they have dollars, from the Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund. They also, that's my job at SEMCOG, we have transportation alternatives funds, TAP grants, as well as MDOT has TAP grants. So there is a variety of sources for funds, and with this, I think, that there's so many feathers in the cap, of getting this project moving. The main thing, as Wally's saying, is there's so much, there's a lot of people that need some convincing. And additionally, we do have the right-of-way issues. And as far as, if this is going to be part of the Governor's Showcase Trail, this portion is supposed to be hike-bike. And there has been some, I would say, preference to try and get pedestrians off the roadway. I'm more of the feeling with Wally that something's better than nothing, and there's a lot of communities out there that are using wide paved shoulders as their main
Sure.
facility type. Frenchtown Township, in Monroe County, that's their go-to project. MDOT, in the entire Bay region, basically the whole thumb area. Their standard is, a 5 to 8 foot wide paved shoulder that's used for recreational purposes. So, there is ways to do that, and I'm going to keep fighting to say, hey, in certain situations, I think you don't need a full, pathway. You don't need a sidewalk, especially in our community where we have, people that are, obeying the speed limit. It's safe to begin with. There's so many people out there already riding and biking that those people, that are out there to begin with are making it safer because there's safety in numbers.
There certainly was a great loss when we lost Barry Sedlock, because he had a wealth of information about the situation of existing water lines, and the water lines underneath that section of road would have to be replaced, and when in conjunction with the road work, and so we would like to be a part of a wider road at that point. But just because Barry's gone doesn't mean he's the only one that knew anything about it. Lorinda is just as sharp as Barry was.
Mm-hmm.
She understands that system. Bill Kostick, who's been chair for 10 years now. Bill and I don't always agree on things, but we certainly agree on that road. And I think that he's going to be a wealth of information for us as far as when they plan to do something with East Rivers Road. And that's when all of the dominoes fall into place,
Mm-hmm.
We have a bad winter like we did last year, and we get about 60 water main breaks, and 40 of them are down on East River. You're going to have some great incentive to do some work there.
Mm-hmm.
So let's work, again, intercommission, intercommittee. We've got a great lean group of township staff here that's well-schooled on what we need, so. I couldn't be more rah-rah about that bunch. But let's take them all and put us together in a room, bang our heads together and come up with a solution.
Great, I'm excited.
I'd like to see it happen. That
Yeah.
is a nice cookie duster, by the way.
You think we're leaving in a year and a half?
Huh?
Well,
I'm
you
not-
better hurry on this
I'm-
project.
Yeah, well, I didn't say I was leaving in a year and a half.
Oh, yeah.
I said I'm gonna serve out my term, all right? Then we'll see.
Ah,
I'm just trying to time frame this.
You time framing me?
No, time frame.
You wanna call somebody and dig a hole at the cemetery already? Jeez, they already dug it.
okay, let's go into reports and closing. Is there any upcoming rides or runs to publicize? Hearing none. Wally, do you have any reports for us?
Just one more thing to tell you about. Anybody been past the bridges over the bike path bridges? A lot of new lumber out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the guy's done a beautiful job on all of them. I haven't walked those yet, but I've ridden past and you can see all of the work. It's gonna look kind of crummy during the winter because that wood has to weather for a while. Ladies and gentlemen, this spring, we're not gonna get 3 bridges washed for $2,800. We gotta do it better than that. We tore a lot of that lumber up with pressure washing. So I'm looking for an alternative, low pressure, with a environmentally friendly deck wash. And then let's get them sprayed up so that they look like $1 million. Target Island Fest. Okay, let's get it in place now in January and February. Are you planning on a meeting in December?
I was going to ask about that.
I'd vote not.
Vote not?
I think we have our next one in January. Everybody's busy in December.
I see Jane's interested. I'd like to go around to see is there,
I'm here. I got in my calendar.
does anyone want to meet formally? If you feel that we need to do a lot of work, we don't have to, meet as, at this location and be televised. We could have a work session for those people that can meet and are interested. So long as if we do have, 5 people, that we got to make sure we have the open, publicize it and make sure it complies with the Open Meetings Act. Anyone have a preference?
I would like to meet simply because I feel we have to start formulating our schedule, especially in the light of trying to work with channels and put something in there about future projects and activities. So we have to have our schedule worked out by the time we go to channels and ask them to print.
Okay. Do you feel there's a need to, have this whole shebang basically be televised?
No,
No.
Okay.
and as a matter of fact, just on principle, you don't have to have all of your meetings televised either.
Mhm.
Those are your choices to make.
Mhm. And again, we try to keep it as open as possible. That's one thing that Mr. Ranka liked us to do. That's, we agreement, whenever it makes sense, we try to do that. But if it's going to be more brainstorming and strategy, there's going to be some back and forth. I think it makes more sense to have it off camera and
Precisely.
not bore the people at home. Any other preferences? Otherwise, I'd say that, we'll keep the meeting as a study session on the same date as usual. And we'll figure out a location in the meantime, send out an email and publicize it if it's going to be
Okay.
attended by more than 4 people. Okay, great. Chairperson's report. Only thing I'm going to say is that the regional non-motorized plan for Southeast Michigan was approved unanimously last Thursday at the SEMCOG General Assembly. All that information is available on our website, semcog.org. You have the draft, the actual plan document, as well as the priority corridor maps, one for each county plus the city of Detroit. Download those and see. Groseal's on there. I'm very happy that thing passed. I'm very happy that it passed unanimously. And now there's going to be a lot of implementation work, and I believe that Southern Wayne County, Groseal, Northern Monroe County, as well as the rest of the region, is going to highly benefit from this plan. Hearing, nothing else from anyone, I would say have a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn and a happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Thank you, Wally. I have support.
Had
All in
word.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Walk, bike, and drive safe.